We're going to talk about the life cycle of the leatherback turtle, starting with the nesting stage. Now, when the female leatherback is ready to lay eggs, she comes up onto the beach. Now, this is a leatherback track that you might see when the leatherback comes up onto the dry sand to lay her eggs. Here she is crawling through the wet sand. It's really hard because she weighs about 2,000 pounds and is made for swimming in the ocean. And when she digs a hole, she'll throw sand with her front flippers and use her back flippers as hands. She has individual bones that are used for digging, kind of like the bones in our hands. The nest has to be really deep because it needs to be the right temperature. And if it's too hot, the eggs won't hatch, and if it's too cold, the eggs won't hatch. The temperature actually determines whether the eggs will be male or female hatchlings. Now, there are a couple threats to the leatherback turtle at this stage because she comes out of the water and is on the beach. There's any animal that might be large enough to eat the leatherback while it's an adult is a threat to the leatherback. Here you can see the eggs. They're kind of wet and they're leathery, and they're not like a chicken's egg because they have to fall so far. Now, here is a poacher that might take the leatherback, and alligators are one of the only land animals that are large enough to eat the leatherback when it's an adult. This is the inside of a nest, and you can see it's really far down. Here's the nest after about a month. There are some eggs in there that are not containing leatherbacks. They're full of water to keep the nest moist. And the leatherbacks come up through the sand, actually using each other as a ladder. The bottom ones start to crawl up, but that sand is so loose they can't do it on their own, and they actually crawl on each other's backs, using each other for support. Once they come up through the sand, we can say that they're now hatchlings. They have hatched. There's a bunch of threats to hatchlings, and some of them being the temperature of the beach, and then also predators that might try to eat hatchlings. Here you see them crawling over these lattice sticks. These were placed by scientists because one of the threats to eggs is that animals will come and dig them up. Sometimes that's natural, but sometimes it's also animals that we've introduced, like domesticated dogs. Now, it's a long journey for the leatherback hatchling to go from the nest, which we actually call a clutch of eggs, all the way to the beach. And we know from reading a book together that they're going toward the moon. They're following the light of the moon, and that's their natural instinct. They were never told to go toward the moon, they just do it naturally. So when we read this book, there were some things that we learned. In addition to being a nice story, we learned that they're going toward the moon, and they know to do this, and it's really hard. They have to go up through the sand, and so during that journey, there's a lot of things that could happen. That's why the leatherback lays about 100 eggs, because not very many of them naturally survive. The chances are better of having successful leatherbacks if there's more eggs. So one of the things that's happening that's a threat to the leatherback during the hatchling stage is people are building homes close to the beach, and they have lights that shine that look to the leatherback like they might be the moon. Now, this is the actual beach in Costa Rica where the 6th graders at our school go and study the leatherbacks. And it's a really nice beach, but as you can see where I'm pointing, there are some homes that are getting closer and closer to the sand. And I expect that a lot of those homes have porch lights or even lights for their pool, because I can see some pools, that might look to the hatchling like it could be the moon. And if it goes the wrong way, well, it's not going to get to the ocean. It'll probably get lost or get eaten by a land predator. Now, as you go north from this beach, you'll see that there has been some erosion. What looks like it may have once been a really nice sandy beach is now kind of a cliffside. And if that's a beach where leatherbacks at one time hatched, when they come back and that beach isn't there anymore, they won't really know what to do, or it might throw off the balance of the way the nests are on the other beaches. So one of the threats to the leatherback during the nesting or the egg stage is erosion or habitat destruction, either natural habitat destruction or man-made because people are building on it. Now, as we go south from that beach, here we see a large town or even a city that probably has more lights. Now, this is footage of some people helping leatherback turtles after they've hatched. It's really nice of them. They're trying to make sure that birds and crabs and dogs and raccoons don't get these hatchlings, but we can't always be there when hatchlings are trying to make their way from the clutch to the beach. So we need to design a way to help them so that we don't always have to be there watching them and protecting them and making sure predators aren't getting them. This is a nest that has a lot of hatchlings that have successfully come up through the sand, and then they're going to start slowly making their way toward the ocean. Now, if there's people there protecting them, they might be okay. But if there are not people there protecting them, we might see some predators that naturally feed on the leatherback hatchlings, and it's a natural thing. But we have to remember that the leatherback is an endangered species. So while it's great that the birds and the crabs have something to eat, if they eat too many of them, then there will be less and less leatherbacks that come back to that beach to nest themselves. Now this, unfortunately, is a beach vulture eating a leatherback hatchling. There's other birds too that will come down during the certain time of year when leatherbacks are supposed to hatch, because they know that that's a time when they can have an easy meal and feed on leatherback hatchlings. Now, after leatherbacks make it to the ocean, they enter what we call the juvenile stage. They go off this shelf where the Pacific Ocean gets really deep and out into where they'll find lots of jellyfish. And their job during the juvenile stage is to eat lots of jellyfish and get larger. So they often find that the jellyfish will move north, which is why they go from the juvenile stage to what we call the coastal feeding stage. They'll follow the jellyfish north as far as the coast of California. Leatherbacks have been spotted inside Monterey Bay, coming up and getting air. So this is not a leatherback turtle. This is a green turtle eating a jellyfish. And the reason we're looking at this is so that you can see what a jellyfish looks like in the wild, and also highlight some differences between the two turtles. Now the green turtle is taking small bites out of this jellyfish, which is not what leatherbacks do. Leatherbacks have a sharp beak in the front for popping the whole jellyfish and eating it whole. Now they need to do this because they're much larger and they eat a lot more than any other turtle. Now this is a leatherback, and something else that's interesting is that when it's eating smaller jellyfish, like it is right here, it has spikes in its mouth that face backward so that when a jellyfish goes in, the jellyfish can't swim out. It makes its mouth one-way traffic, just in. During any stage that the leatherback is in the ocean eating jellyfish, one of the threats is that sometimes jellyfish look like plastic bags. Their eyesight is not great, and this is what a jellyfish might look like to a leatherback turtle. Now, this is what a plastic bag looks like to a leatherback turtle. One of the other things that's a threat is longline fishing. This is not fishing with a fishing pole. This is fishing where fishermen take long miles of line and lay them out. Now this leatherback turtle has been freed, but not all of them do. Anytime the leatherback is in the water, they can also encounter an oil spill from a boat. Now, if it swims through this oil spill, it gets all oil and sick. Any pollution that we dump either on purpose or on accident into the ocean, can affect all sea life, not just the leatherback turtle. So if the jellyfish or the fish around it are affected, or the leatherback swims through pollution or oil, that all affects the leatherback. One of the only animals large enough to eat the leatherback is the killer whale, or the orca. Now, after the coastal feeding stage, they have to go back down to the beach near where they were born. After they're big enough that we can call them an adult, they enter the breeding and migration stage. So they will need to find another leatherback so that they can start this cycle over again and make more leatherback turtles. Here's some interesting facts about leatherbacks.